What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Down Dog Athletics Podcast, a competitor's guide to mental health and mastery. I'm your host, Paul Klingen, and I'll get right into the introduction of what Down Dog Athletics is, why I started it, and what this podcast is going to be. So what is Down Dog Athletics? It's really a fusion of the two worlds of yoga and athletics. And my mission with the brand in this podcast is to bridge the gap between the athlete and the yogi. Really think of the athlete as someone that is aggressive, competitive, really a paragon of physical strength. We're on the other end of the spectrum. You have the yogi, who's patient, always practicing, and to me stands for really a mental and spiritual journey, which is the yoga practice. So I really want to create a platform that gives athletes, men, or even just competitive people permission to explore things like yoga, meditation, journaling, things that might be deemed or have a certain stigma that they can't really get into. I know Down Dog Athletics, for me, when I think about it, I've always been athletic with my body, always had a competitive mindset, but then I like to think of it as being overlaid with this meditation practice, yoga practice, journaling, self-awareness, because I believe that when you find that balance between your athlete and your yogi, or maybe it's the warrior and the scholar, whatever your yin and your yang is, then you're really able to step into your higher self and your higher power. And it's going to be different for everyone. But it really just takes awareness to figure out where you are on that spectrum and where you might need to shift. And again, this podcast is really a platform giving people a way to think and expand that awareness in that spectrum to maybe find that balance that they need. So I want to start just by introducing myself and kind of my story. So I'll go all the way back to my childhood where I grew up playing sports, had a really good group of friends. We'd play in the street, baseball, hockey, soccer, basketball, football, you name it. We were running go routes. We were playing cul-de-sac baseball with the tennis ball, all that fun stuff. We'd park the bike out in the lawn, play until the lights went out. It was really kind of a 90s kid experience, if anyone remembers that. But one of the things I remember, I really excelled at a few different sports. Baseball was one of the main ones. I ended up getting a scholarship to play D1 baseball before I want to get there. I remember as a young kid having friends or teachers or parents being like, you're so X, you don't need to X. And what X would be is you're so smart, or you're so strong, or you're so just talented that it naturally comes to you. And at the time, didn't really see any problems with it, and I'll get to why this was such a big deal later on, but really just kind of established that you don't need to try. Everything naturally comes to you, and so you're just able to show up, and that's good enough. So as I mentioned, got a scholarship to play Division I baseball, ended up going to Washington State as a catcher. And as soon as I got there, I realized everyone was more talented than me, and they worked harder, and it really clashed with my identity. That was, you're so talented, you can just show up. And I played for 2 years, was a role player, had a lot of fun, learned a lot of things, but eventually got to the point where I was like, man, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. Kind of bumping my head on my ceiling of what I'm capable of. Sat down with the coaches, had that conversation, and quit after my sophomore year. I really wanted to just have the college experience. I ran away really from the hard work, and I didn't realize it at the time. At the time, I was just like, I want to play video games, I want to chase girls, I want to party, I want to have that college experience. All of this work, all of this effort that I'm having to put into something that, again, clashed with my identity of I can't just show up and do this. It was really hard for me to kind of battle with. And so the one thing that I did hang on to was I still was active. So I was still working out, so that was great. Post-college, I'm still struggling with that identity, the belief that was causing me to kind of be, I'll just call it self-sabotage, where it's like, I can just show up and all these things will still happen for me. So if you look at from like a drinking, partying standpoint, still blacking out, still being sloppy in my mid-20s, using dating and women to fill holes and insecurities that wasn't something that they could ever feel, but I didn't realize, why couldn't I attract the kind of person that I wanted to attract, the one that I thought I deserved? And I had a good job, but I wasn't happy with what I was doing. I wasn't fulfilled, and I didn't understand why others, whether it was peers, friends, were getting elevated or growing in their careers, and I wasn't. And so what I pictured it as is, there's this river that I just couldn't cross. I'd walk up and down the bank, looking across. There's no way to get across, and it was so frustrating because no matter what I did, I couldn't figure out how to get to that other side of what I felt like I wanted, I felt like I deserved, but in reality, just the hard work wasn't put back in there. So it was about 26 at the time, and a guy I played baseball with took me to a yoga class. And again, I had the mindset that I could just show up. Yoga was going to be easy. I worked out, and newsflash, it wasn't. Kicked my ass. I had to make a business decision on the mat about 20 minutes in. Is it more embarrassing to walk out and have everyone see me walk out and quit, or just die on the mat? I elected to die on the mat. It was a yoga sculpt class, and at that point I was like, wow, this is really hard. I got to try this. So eventually I moved up to Seattle. I was in Portland at the time, moved up to Seattle, and I started taking yoga for really the first time ever. And I realized that I was in an environment where I could get really quiet and listen to what my inner voice, what my soul was saying. And so started meditating every day with the help of a coach and a therapist in the fall, winter of 2017. And what was crazy is that I didn't have any plans to do these things, but I quit drinking. Ended up losing a ton of fat, which was like fat that I couldn't figure out why I couldn't lose, despite working out all the time. I ended up deleting my dating apps, and I got a lot more selective in who I was dating, and it was a lot more fulfilling that way. And then I realized with my career, like, wow, I don't want to be in advertising. I want to do something fitness related. And so right around that time I started meditating. I was like, all right, just going to get my personal training certification, did that through NSCA, became a yoga instructor, knocked that out. And that was January 2018 that I really started doing all those things. By March 2018, I had my own business. It was a yoga personal training business. And by June, I was training or instructing clients about 30 hours a week on top of a 40-hour full-time job, whatever you want to call it, at Amazon. And in August 2018, I decided to quit. So looking at about an 8-month turnaround from realizing what I wanted to do and then actually doing it, which a year and a half past that, now I'm like, whoa, that was pretty quick. But anyway, kind of just had a bunch of different opportunities come, and some of them have been amazing. There's also been a whole lot of fear and anxiety that I've had to deal with, kind of having that safety net cut out from underneath you. But at the same time, I would never go back, because really, at this point, what I would say is just too aware to go back to what I know my soul and my true calling really is. And I go through that story because all these things that I realized were products of me getting really quiet and still and sitting in silence with my own thoughts and having to dive deep down into the truth and the core of my beliefs and my values and my identity of what was really true. And I'm really passionate about this because I believe there's so many people that could benefit from a deep self-study, but that option just isn't even visible to them because mental health has a stigma, yoga has a stigma, meditation has a stigma. But if I hadn't had someone else give me permission to go and do that, I would still probably be telling myself the same lie that I quit baseball because I wanted to have a college experience, when in reality, I quit because it was just too hard. And I quit because it clashed with my identity that I could just show up and I was a natural and didn't need to try. And so I'm still on this journey of trying to learn more about myself and still having to battle old ways of thinking or old stories, because if I don't continuously work on them, they're going to come back and I'm going to have to, really dig down deep and battle them again. And that's where, whether it's athletics or trying to work out and lose weight or get stronger, the battle really is upstairs. Everyone has the physical tools and physical capabilities. But I really want this podcast to be a way for people to, one, address things like mental health and, have really honest conversations about things like anxiety or suicide or depression. And again, remove that stigma and have it be kind of a platform where it's talked about in a healthy way. But then also on the other end of the spectrum, you're looking at mental mastery, and you're never going to arrive and always be like completely mentally tough or completely confident. But it's just the practice of continuously working on that and being on that journey that I believe is mental mastery itself. So lastly, I just want to go over the subtitle and unpack a little bit: A Competitor's Guide to Mental Health and Mastery. I wanted to use competitor because it's not just for athletes, but also looking at someone that just has a competitive streak. It could be anyone with goals and ambition, someone in sales, someone that's starting a business, someone that is in the music industry that wants to really work towards something and achieve great things. They're definitely looking to seek that balance in pursuit of having more, but then also having really gratitude for what already is. And then guide I just like that word because I definitely don't have things figured out. I'll still fail every day, but I'm on that journey to mastering my own mind. And I'll be having different people on that'll give you the tools and stories to help you master yours. Mental health is in there because I really want this to be a platform to talk about things that people really struggle with and let them know that they're not weak for having anxiety, depression, or suicidal thoughts. And I want this podcast to help reduce stigmas around mental health and give people ways to manage it, seek help without feeling like something's wrong with them or that their feelings aren't valid. While on the other end of the spectrum, like I talk about, like the idea of like a Mamba mentality, where you're just in constant pursuit of just this mentally tough, confident self-belief, determination, wisdom, whatever you want to call it, grounded, um, and make mental mastery something of an aspiration, the same way a physique or a certain speed is an aspiration from a physical standpoint.
So hopefully that gives you a little background on the podcast. I'm really excited. This is the part of the movie where Bilbo Baggins just runs off and has no idea where things are going to end up. And that's how I really feel with this podcast. I'm super excited for the people to come on. I'm super excited to help other people and have them reach out. I'm really excited just as my own self to really grow and explore and struggle. And, you guys will be able to witness all of that. And it'll be really cool see 3 years from now how everything has grown and expanded, and I'm really excited for everyone to follow along. And without that, thank you guys so much for listening to the first episode of the Down Dog Athletics podcast. I'll catch you next time. Have a good one.